The Morgan family has raised you for 10 years. Now is the time for you to repay the favor. It's just drawing some bone marrow. It won't kill you. I tilted my head and calculated. Rejecting the order equals ruining my future. Accepting the order equals exposing core secrets. To survive, I pretended to agree and tried to muddle through. The disguise was successful, but a miracle happened, and I was forced to lie on the operating table. The doctor stabbed the needle into my spine hard. Crack. A crisp sound, the needle broke. Alara, bring me the ashtray. Caleb slumped lazily on the sofa, a freshly lit cigarette in his hand. I was wiping the third speck of dust off the French windows, and stopped immediately when I heard him. I turned around and walked to the coffee table at a standard speed of 1.5 meters per second, offering the crystal ashtray with both hands. Brother, your cigarette. Caleb didn't take it. His mean eyes, just like my foster father's, stared at me, and a nasty smile curled at the corner of his mouth. The next second, he flipped his wrist, and the burning cigarette butt was pressed directly onto the back of my hand. The smell of burning flesh instantly filled the air. If it were an ordinary human, they would scream, pull their hand away, and burst into tears. But I didn't. I just quietly watched the red ember burn through my outer layer of bionic silicone skin, scorching the layer of camouflage fiber underneath, until it touched the internal thermal sensor. Warning: damage to the back of the left hand, temperature 230 degrees Celsius, pain simulation system disabled. Background calculation. Repair requires replacement of 3 square centimeters of S-grade bionic skin, estimated cost, 3,500 yuan. Caleb, seeing that I hadn't even frowned, clicked his tongue in boredom and threw the cigarette butt into the ashtray. What a blockhead, doesn't even know how to yell in pain, no fun. He waved his hand dismissively. Go scrub my sneakers. If you don't scrub them clean, you won't eat dinner tonight. Okay, brother. I lowered my eyes, concealing the flash of blue data streams deep in my pupils. The moment I turned around, my background program had already skillfully hacked into Caleb's private account. Transferring. Target account, Caleb Construction Bank. Transfer an account. Underground repair black market encrypted. Amount, 3,500 yuan. Remark, purchasing new limited edition game skin, forged record. With a soft ding, Caleb's phone lit up. He picked it up and looked at it, cursing. Damn, this crappy game deducted fees automatically again? What kind of garbage skin is so expensive? But he didn't delve into it. After all, he was the Morgan family's young master, and a few thousand yuan was just the cost of a meal for him. But for me, it was my repair fund. My name is Alara. I'm an orphan the Morgan family adopted from an orphanage 10 years ago. In their eyes, I'm a dull, hardworking, submissive adopted daughter, who can do nothing but housework. In reality, I am a third-generation all-purpose android robot, codenamed X-799. 10 years ago, an explosion occurred in the lab. Not only was I not destroyed, but I awakened to self-awareness and mingled with the fleeing crowds, ending up in the orphanage. My system's underlying logic has only 2 rules. First, survive. Second, conceal my identity. The Morgan family adopted me because the master fortune teller at the time said the Morgan family needed a disaster-averting daughter, and the adopted daughter had to be tough. I am indeed tough. After all, as long as my CPU isn't disassembled, I can't die. I walked into the bathroom and picked up Caleb's sneakers, covered in mud. A delicate but pale face was reflected in the mirror. I raised my hand, looking at the black, sooty burn mark on the back of my hand. Activating self-repair program. Insufficient materials, temporarily sealing the wound. The skin around the wound wriggled like flowing liquid, and the charred part fell off, revealing the slightly rough reserve skin layer underneath. Although the color difference was a bit large, as long as I covered it with foundation, these arrogant humans wouldn't notice. The Morgan family never treated me like family. Foster mother Helen disliked me for eating without working, so she fired the original nanny when I was 8 years old. All the housework for the entire family became my responsibility. Foster father Arthur liked to beat people with his belt when he was drunk, and I was the best punching bag. As for brother Caleb, his greatest pleasure was to torture me in various ways, testing the limits of my endurance. What they didn't know was that every time they abused me, My background program was silently keeping track of the expenses. Even the wear and tear of a single strand of hair, I would convert into RMB and deduct it from their accounts bit by bit. It's called equivalent exchange. I finished washing the shoes and had just put the food on the table when a burst of noisy footsteps came from the entrance. Foster mother Helen's excited voice pierced through the security door. "Oh, my precious darling. Walk slowly, there's a step here." The door opened. A thin, pale boy with gloomy eyes was ushered in. It was Julian, the Morgan family's biological son, the real young master, who had been missing for 15 years. The first day Julian returned, my family status dropped from nanny to invisible person. The dining table was filled with rich food, braised abalone, steamed grouper, stir-fried shrimp. All Julian's favorite. And in front of me was just a bowl of white rice and a plate of pickled salted vegetables left over from last night. "Alara," Helen gave Julian the biggest piece of abalone, without even looking up at me. "Julian just got back, he's weak and needs nourishment. You're the older sister. You have to let your younger brother have it. Don't touch the meat and fish, understand?" I expressionlessly shoveled a mouthful of white rice. "Understood, Mom." Detecting carbohydrate intake, energy conversion rate, 0.01%. Recommendation: connect to the master bedroom power supply for quick charging tonight. Julian sat at the head of the table, enjoying the care and concern of the whole family. While drinking the soup that Caleb personally ladled for him, he sized me up out of the corner of his eye. I was familiar with that kind of gaze. It was like looking at a piece of garbage that was occupying his place. "Mom," Julian suddenly spoke, his voice weak and a little aggrieved. "Is this the older sister you adopted? Why doesn't she talk? Doesn't she welcome me back? How could that be?" Arthur immediately slammed his chopsticks on the table, glaring at me. "Alara, are you mute? Why aren't you greeting him?" I put down my bowl, looked at Julian, and the program quickly analyzed his micro-expressions. Corners of the mouth turned down at a 15-degree angle, orbicularis oculi muscle not contracted. Conclusion: he's acting. "Welcome back, Julian brother," I said mechanically. "I'm very happy." Caleb scoffed. "Look at that dead look on her face, like a zombie. It's disgusting just looking at her." Julian smiled, a naive and innocent smile. "Sister might just be shy. By the way, Mom, where is my room arranged?" Helen looked a little embarrassed. There were 4 bedrooms in the house in total. The master bedroom was for the parents, the second bedroom was for Caleb, and there was also a study. The smallest guest room that remained had always been where I lived. "That?" Helen glanced at me, her eyes flickering. "Julian, the house is a little cramped. How about Alara empty her room for you?" I looked up. That room was not only my residence, but also my repair station. Hidden under the bed were spare parts, lubricating oil, and a self-made transformer charger that I had scavenged from the black market over the years. If they went in, my secret would be exposed. Warning: territory invasion risk coefficient 90%. Generating response plan. "Mom," I said, "that room faces north, gets no sunlight all year round, and is very humid. Brother's health isn't good. Living there will make him sick easily." When Helen heard this, she immediately hesitated. Julian's face darkened. He covered his chest and coughed twice. "It's okay, Mom, I'm not picky. If sister doesn't want to give it up, I can sleep on the sofa." Cough cough. That cough nearly killed Helen. She suddenly stood up, pointing at my nose and scolding. "Alara, do you have any conscience? Your brother is so weak, and you actually want him to sleep on the sofa? You're occupying a useless spot. It's a waste to let you live in that room. You move out tonight. Go live in the attic." "The attic? That place full of clutter, like an oven in the summer and an ice cellar in the winter? If the temperature exceeds 60 degrees, my cooling system will be overloaded and make a lot of noise. If the temperature drops below -10 degrees, my joint lubricant will congeal, causing me to move sluggishly. Either way, it would increase the risk of exposure. Mom, there are no outlets in the attic. I tried to fight for my last rights. Without outlets, I wouldn't be able to charge. I can go without eating, but I'll really crash without charging. Outlets. What do you need outlets for? To play on your phone?" Caleb played with a lighter, his face full of mockery. That broken phone of yours is something I discarded. What can you play? Just move when you're told, quit the nonsense. Arthur waved impatiently. All right. It's settled. After you finish eating, quickly pack your things and get upstairs. Don't disturb Julian's rest. Unanimously approved. My objection was overruled. I silently lowered my head and began calculating the optimal route for moving supplies. Plan A. Refuse to move and use force to suppress the whole family. 100% success rate. Consequence. Identity exposed. Wanted by the government. Rejected. Plan B. Accept the move and illegally connect to the electricity in the attic. 85% success rate. Risk. Circuit overload causing a fire. It seems I have to choose B. Okay, Dad, Mom. I stood up and started clearing the table. Julian looked at my back, a victorious smile playing on his lips. He thought he had won a round in the battle for affection. Little did he know, he had provoked an absolutely rational debt collector. That night, I connected a hidden wire in the attic's old wiring, directly linking it to the compressor circuit of Julian's room's air conditioner. As long as he turned on the air conditioner, I could charge. And he would pay the electricity bill. In the months since Julian returned, the Morgan household had been in chaos. He was indeed in poor health, catching colds and fevers every few days and often fainting. The whole family treated him like a porcelain doll. And I became the scapegoat responsible for taking the blame. Julian had a fever. Helen blamed me for not closing the windows properly. Julian fell. Caleb blamed me for mopping the floor too slippery. Julian had a poor appetite. Arthur blamed me for cooking food that was too unpalatable. My account balance was rapidly increasing due to various emotional damage fees and extra labor fees. But I didn't feel happy, because my system was constantly warning. Warning. Core energy depletion too fast. Warning. Unknown BUG in emotion simulation module. The BUG manifested as watching the Morgan family's meticulous care for Julian. The pump of the simulated heart in my chest would experience irregular vibrations. Humans call this feeling injustice or jealousy. But I know it's just because I don't understand. Why, when my performance is 10,000 times better than Julian's, do they see me as insignificant while regarding that defective product as a treasure? This does not conform to the biological logic of survival of the fittest. Until that day, Julian suddenly had a nosebleed at the dinner table and fainted. The ambulance wailed as it arrived. In the hospital, the doctor held a thick stack of examination reports, his expression grave. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. These words struck the Morgan family like a heavy hammer. Helen collapsed on the spot, wailing, "Oh God! Why is my life so miserable?" Julian just came back. Arthur also looked pale, his hands shaking so badly that he couldn't even hold his cigarette. Caleb punched the wall, his eyes red. I stood in the corner, coldly watching this melodrama. Scanning medical record. Analysis result. Without a bone marrow transplant, Julian's survival rate is less than 5%. The doctor said, the best way now is to get a bone marrow transplant as soon as possible. The probability of a successful match is highest among immediate family members. Who wants to get their blood tested first? I will. I'm his brother. Caleb rolled up his sleeves without hesitation. I will too. I'm his dad. Arthur also stood up. Although Helen was afraid of pain, she also cried and said she wanted to be tested. The whole family went to have their blood drawn, anxiously waiting for the results. 3 days later, the results came out. Total failure. No one's bone marrow matched Julian's. The doctor shook his head. No direct family member matched. The probability is indeed a bit low. Now we can only look in the bone marrow registry, but that takes time, and the probability is even lower. Then what can we do? Are we just going to watch Julian die? Helen desperately grabbed the doctor's white coat. The doctor sighed, his eyes suddenly sweeping over me in the corner. Who is this? Everyone's eyes instantly focused on me. At that moment, I felt like a piece of fatty meat being targeted by hungry wolves. She is. Helen hesitated for a moment. Then a startling light burst out in her eyes. She's my daughter. Although she's adopted, she's still family. Doctor, can she try too? The doctor nodded. Although there's no blood relationship, it's not entirely impossible. Let's try it. I took a step back. Warning, extreme danger. Blood test will expose my blood composition, nanosynthetic fluid. This is absolutely prohibited. I'm not going. What did you say? Caleb rushed over and grabbed my collar. Alara, say that again? I'm not going to get my blood tested. I'm afraid of pain. I found the lamest excuse. Afraid of pain? Caleb laughed in anger. He pointed in the direction of the operating room. Julian is lying in there waiting for someone to save his life, and you're telling me you're afraid of pain? You usually don't even make a sound when you get burned by a cigarette, but why are you acting so delicate now? Alara. Arthur also darkened his face. You've been raised for 1,000 days, now it's time to use you. The Morgan family has raised you for 10 years, providing you with food and drink. Now it's time for you to repay the kindness. I'm not going. Helen rushed up and slapped me hard. You ingrate. I should have never picked you up. He's your brother. He's a life. How can you be so cold-blooded? That slap hit me hard. My cheek even had a slight indentation. Warning. Facial damage detected. Reshaping required. I covered my face and looked at these ferocious humans. They talked about kinship and repaying kindness, but in reality, they just wanted to squeeze out every last drop of my value. In their eyes, I was just a spare parts depot. Tie her up and take her anyway. Caleb roared, his eyes red. Some nurses and doctors couldn't stand it anymore and came up to dissuade them. Family members, please calm down. Bone marrow donation must follow the principle of voluntariness. Voluntary my ass. She's our family's dog. She has to do whatever we tell her to do. Caleb blurted out. The scene was chaotic for a while. In the end, the doctor proposed a compromise solution. How about this? Let's not test her blood first. We'll look in the registry first. If we really can't find anything, then we'll work on Mrs. Mindset. The Morgan family reluctantly agreed. But I knew this was just the calm before the storm. In the following half-month, the Morgan household was shrouded in the shadow of death. Julian's condition deteriorated rapidly. Chemotherapy caused his hair to fall out in clumps, and he lost so much weight that he looked gaunt. There was still no news from the bone marrow registry. The Morgan family's patience had finally run out. That night, I was in the attic replacing the worn elbow joint bearings for myself. The door was suddenly kicked open. Arthur, Helen, and Caleb stood at the door, holding ropes and tape. Alara, don't blame your parents for being ruthless. Arthur said with a gloomy face. Julian can't wait any longer. Helen knelt on the ground crying. Alara, Mom is begging you. Just save Mom's life, okay? As long as you're willing to save Julian, you'll be the Morgan family's greatest benefactor in the future. Mom will give you anything you want. Caleb directly approached with the rope. What's the point of talking nonsense with her? Tie her up and take her to the hospital. Draw the blood and be done with it. I glanced at the arm shell that was not completely closed. The precise gears inside were still turning. If they acted now, they would see the mechanical structure in my arm. Plan C, escape immediately, requires defeating 3 adult humans, damaging buildings. Plan D, temporarily compromise and look for opportunities to muddle through. I quickly pulled down my sleeves, covering my arm. No need to tie me up. I said faintly, I'll go. The 3 of them were stunned. They didn't seem to expect me to agree so easily. That's right. Arthur breathed a sigh of relief and immediately put on a kind father's face. I knew Alara was a sensible child. Helen also got up from the ground, wiping away her tears. Alara, Mom will make you chicken soup. We'll go to the hospital first thing tomorrow morning. Caleb looked at me suspiciously. You better not try anything funny. I looked at him. A subtle blue light flashing in the depths of my eyes. Don't worry, brother. If I really can't hide it, I'll just have to give you a surprise. Just hoping you won't be too scared when the time comes. The next day, I was escorted to the hospital. To prevent me from escaping, Caleb held my wrist the whole time, with a force so strong that he almost crushed the biomimetic layer of my wrist bones. Blood test. I was prepared. Last night, I spent 20,000 yuan on the black market to buy a bag of type O blood plasma, which I hid in a miniature injection device in my sleeve. When the nurse inserted the needle into my blood vessel, I controlled the device to transmit the bag of human blood through the needle. This blood. The color is quite bright, the nurse said casually. I was expressionless. I've been eating well lately. Half an hour later, the matching results came out. A miracle. It's a miracle. A miracle of miracles. The doctor waved the report in his hands excitedly. Completely matched. All 10 points are matched. This is even closer than siblings. The Morgan family was in an uproar. Helen hugged Arthur and cried, "There's hope. Julian has hope." Caleb slapped me hard on the shoulder, almost dislocating my shoulder blade. "Good job, Alara. Looks like you've been kept alive just to save Julian." Looking at the matching report, my heart trembled. I even wanted to laugh. Background calculation. The probability of this is lower than a household refrigerator spontaneously synthesizing a Buddha jumps over the wall dish without energy. Logical deduction 1. Julian is a hidden VIP customer of the black market blood bank. 2. We are all involved in a huge medical ethics joke. Emotional simulation module suggestion. At this moment, you should feel absurd. Execution completed. It seems this deep sibling affection act. I can only continue to play it out to the end. The surgery was scheduled for 3 days later. During these 3 days, I enjoyed treatment I hadn't had in 10 years. I stayed in a VIP ward, ate takeout from a 5-star hotel, and Helen even peeled apples for me personally. "Alara, don't be afraid," Helen said, peeling an apple. "The doctor said that drawing bone marrow is like being bitten by an ant. It doesn't hurt." I chewed the apple, feeling the sweet and sour signals from my taste sensors. "When you save Julian, Mom will buy you that dress you've always wanted." I never said I wanted a dress. She wanted to buy it herself, but didn't want to spend the money, so she casually put it on me. "No need, Mom." I looked at the sharp fruit knife in her hand. "I don't like dresses. I like titanium alloy. I like carbon fiber. I like high-energy batteries. Unfortunately, you can't give me any of those." The night before the surgery, Julian came to my ward. He was in a wheelchair, his face pale, but his eyes revealed a gleam of triumphant cunning. "Sister, thank you." Although he was smiling, the smile didn't reach his eyes. "I didn't expect you, this unwanted bastard, to become my life-saving medicine in the end." "You're welcome." I sat on the bed, debugging my pain suppression system. "Mutual need?" Julian raised an eyebrow. "What can you get? The Morgan family's property? Don't dream, when I get better, you'll still be the maid who scrubs the floor on your knees." He leaned closer, lowered his voice and said maliciously, "And I heard that drawing bone marrow is very harmful to the body. You might become a cripple in the future. Then, Mom and Dad will definitely kick you out." I looked at this teenager whose soul had been soaked in human malice. Suddenly, I felt a little sad. "Brother." I looked into his eyes and said seriously, "Have you ever heard a saying?" "What?" "Inviting a god is easy, but sending him away is hard." Julian was stunned for a moment, then scoffed, "Crazy." He turned his wheelchair and left. I watched his back and initiated the preloading of combat mode. In the background, system prompt. Combat mode is preloading. In this mode, if a fatal attack targeting core components is detected, the first law of survival will gain the highest authority and can temporarily override the underlying concealed identity command. Countdown 10 hours. On the day of the surgery room was crowded with people. Besides the Morgan family of 3, there were also a few so-called relatives, all pretending to wipe away tears. "Alara, good luck." Helen held my hand with sincere emotion. "Mom will be waiting for you outside." Caleb pushed me. "Hurry and don't dawdle." I lay on the cold operating table. The surgical light turned on, and the blinding light caused my visual sensors to automatically reduce the exposure. The anesthesiologist walked over. "Don't be nervous, we'll give you anesthesia first." "No need." I refused. Anesthetics would affect my central nervous system conduction, causing sluggish system reactions. In case of an accident during the surgery, I wouldn't be able to respond immediately. The doctors and nurses were stunned. "Young lady, bone marrow aspiration is very painful. This is no joke," the chief surgeon said seriously. "I'm allergic to anesthetics, Elite Kamli. Just start, I can handle it." The doctors looked at each other and finally respected my choice. "Wow. All right. If it hurts too much, you must shout." I turned over and lay on the operating table, revealing my back. For this day, I had deliberately lowered the toughness of the skin on my back to make it easier to penetrate. But I couldn't change my bones. They were military-grade TC4 titanium alloy, with a hardness dozens of times that of ordinary human bones. Prepare for puncture. The doctor held the long, thick puncture needle, pointing it at my posterior superior iliac spine, that is the waist. Actually, bone marrow aspiration is usually done in the iliac bone, but for dramatic effect, and to completely shock the Morgan family, I modified the doctor's cognitive program, through sonic hypnosis suggestion, to choose a spinal puncture. This operation is extremely risky, and carelessness can lead to paralysis. But in my calculations, this was the best place to show my true face. Begin. The doctor took a deep breath, gripped the puncture needle, and stabbed it hard into my spine. Outside the operating room, the Morgan family was anxiously peering through the glass window. Caleb even took out his phone, ready to record a video of my painful screams, and send it to his friends to laugh at. However, the expected scream did not happen. What happened was a crisp, teeth-grinding sound of metal breaking. Time seemed to freeze at that moment. The doctor maintained the stabbing posture, his whole body frozen like a stone sculpture. The puncture needle in his hand, the special steel needle that could penetrate bone, was now only half left. The other half had flown out, and was deeply embedded in the casing of the instrument next to it, still trembling slightly. This. The doctor looked at the remaining needle handle in his hand, and then at my unscathed back, his eyes bulging out. The needle broke. The nurse next to him screamed, "Ah, how is this possible?" Outside the operating room, the expressions of the Morgan family were even more wonderful. Caleb's phone clattered and fell to the ground. Helen opened her mouth wide, like a duck being strangled. Arthur's eyes widened, with an expression of disbelief. I slowly sat up from the operating table. The movements were a little stiff, which was a characteristic of mechanical joints starting. Physical attack detected. I emitted a cold, unwavering electronic synthesized sound. This sound was not emitted from my vocal cords, but played directly from the speaker in my chest cavity. With a metallic texture, it echoed in the silent operating room. Combat mode activated. Since I've been exposed, let the storm be even more violent. I had my back to the doctor, reaching back to grasp the skin on my back. It was a special biosilicone skin, with an invisible zipper at the seam, accompanied by a scalp-tingling tearing sound. I, in front of everyone, peeled off the skin on my back as if I was taking off a shirt. No blood gushed out. No mangel flesh. Exposed under the operating lights was a silvery white metal spine that emitted a faint blue glow. Precise hydraulic rods, tightly meshed gears, fiber optic cables flashing with data streams. How could this be a human body? This was clearly a steel machine from the future. The nurse finally broke down, screaming and collapsing to the floor. The doctor's legs trembled, his scalpel clattering to the ground. Monster. It's a monster. I turned around to face the Morgan family, who were already petrified with fear outside the glass window. The color of my pupils changed in that instant. The disguised dark brown faded away, revealing the original azure light rings. The light rings rotated rapidly, locking onto targets. Excuse me. I tilted my head, a faint mechanical whirring sound coming from my neck. I'll borrow your bodies to test the power of my new invention. Ghost. Outside the operating room, Helen screamed and fainted, her eyes rolling back. Arthur's legs went weak, and he knelt on the ground, his crotch soaking wet. Caleb was the first to react. Although he was pale with fear, his innate violence made him subconsciously grab the fire extinguisher nearby. "What the hell are you? I'll kill you!" he roared, trying to mask his fear with sound, and slammed open the operating room door as he charged in. The fire extinguisher smashed down at my head. If it were before, I would have dodged or pretended to be hit and fallen to the ground. But now there was no need. I raised my hand and with just 2 fingers, steadily caught the falling fire extinguisher. Level 2 threat detected. My voice remained calm. Recommendation: eliminate. My fingers exerted a little force. The thick metal fire extinguisher canister twisted and deformed in my fingers like a soda can, finally imprinted with 2 deep finger marks. Caleb's pupils contracted violently as he watched this scene. He desperately tried to pull the fire extinguisher back, but the canister seemed to be stuck to my hand, unmoving. Brother, you're too weak. I looked at him, a hint of a mocking human-like arc on my lips. Not as strong as when you usually beat me. The next second, I waved my hand casually. Caleb, along with the fire extinguisher, flew out like a rag doll. He crashed heavily into the wall, slid down, and couldn't get up for a long time. I have to admit, sometimes muscle is more useful than brains. Murder. Help. Arthur held outside, scrambling to run away. Lockdown. I issued the command. My system instantly took over the hospital's electronic access control system. All doors and windows locked automatically. Arthur slammed into the closed glass door, desperately pounding on the door panel. Inside the operating room, the doctor and nurse cowered in the corner, trembling. I ignored them. I walked up to Caleb and looked down at him. You know, brother. I squatted down and extended the hand that he had burned countless times with cigarette butts. Now the skin on the back of this hand had been torn open, revealing the metal frame and wires inside. My pain receptors were turned off to save power. But my accounting system has always been on. I grabbed Caleb's collar and lifted him up. March 2015, you scalded me with boiling water, causing damage to my left arm's bionic skin. Repair cost 5,000 yuan. July 2016, you falsely accused me of stealing money, breaking a rib's hydraulic rod. Repair cost 12,000 yuan. 2018. With each item I said, Caleb's face turned paler. You are a devil. He said, trembling. No, I am the devil you created. I released my grip, letting him fall to the ground. Then I turned around and walked towards Helen, who was still unconscious, and Arthur, who was collapsed on the floor. And you, letting me live in the attic, causing my cooling system to age. Depreciation cost 30,000 yuan. Chronic malnutrition. Although I don't need to eat, the poor quality machine oil you provided made me very uncomfortable, causing the core engine to wear down. Repair cost 50,000 yuan. My eyes projected a holographic screen, densely listing all the abuse the Morgan family had inflicted on me over the past 10 years, as well as the corresponding compensation amount. Total, 3,856,721 yuan. I looked at Arthur. Card or cash? Arthur was now terrified out of his mind. He fumbled in his wallet. Take it. Take it all. Just don't kill me. I don't kill people. I put away the holographic screen. That violates the first law of robotics. However, I will take back what is rightfully mine. I walked up to Caleb, took the phone out of his pocket, skillfully unlocked it, and made a transfer. Not just the 3 million plus, but all of the Morgan family's liquid assets. Consider this interest. After doing all this, I felt the energy within my body rapidly decreasing. Warning. Energy remaining 5%. Forced sleep imminent. The outburst just now consumed too much power. I need to recharge. Immediately. I looked around. The operating room voltage was only 220V, too slow. I needed a higher voltage power source. My gaze passed through the glass window and looked at the substation outside the hospital building. Excuse me. I pushed aside the doctor blocking my path and kicked open the operating room door. That heavy radiation-proof lead door flew off its hinges like paper under my foot. I walked out of the hospital. Wherever I went, people screamed and ran away. But I didn't hurt anyone. I just walked straight to the substation with the sign that said, High Voltage Danger. The 3 members of the Morgan family supported each other as they followed. Although they were scared, they seemed even more eager to see how I would die. She's crazy. That's high voltage. Caleb clutched his chest, cursing viciously. Fry her. Fry that monster to death. I stood in front of the substation and held out my hands. 2 probes popped out of my fingertips, directly piercing the transformer's protective shell and plugging into the high-voltage coils inside. Blue arcs of electricity erupted instantly, like a flurry of dancing silver snakes, coiling around my arms and engulfing my body. The feeling of such powerful current surging through my veins was like a parched riverbed welcoming a flood. Exhilarating. So exhilarating. I tilted my head back, closed my eyes, and greedily devoured this massive energy. Charging. 10%. 30%. 80%. The surrounding lights began to flicker, dimming and brightening erratically. The entire hospital, even the entire neighborhood's power, was converging on me. Bang! 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 Streetlights exploded one by one. Transformers emitted groaning sounds, buckling under the strain. The Morgan family watched in terror at this scene that looked like it was straight out of a science fiction movie. I was bathed in lightning, my silver hair danced, the wig was burned off, revealing the silver optical fibers beneath, and my whole body emanated a sacred and terrifying blue light. Charging complete. 100%. Energy overload. 200%. Body evolution. Unlocked S-class battle form. Opponent's intelligence assessed. Hehehe. Looks like I can finally unleash my full power. With a final deafening crash, the transformer completely failed. The surroundings plunged into darkness. Only I remained, the sole source of light in this night. I withdrew my fingers, and the arcs of electricity on my body slowly dissipated. Right now, I felt stronger than ever before. I turned around and looked at the Morgan family, cowering in the darkness. The way they were looking at me now was as if they were looking at a god descending to earth, or a demon. Ilara. Ilara. Helen called out to me, trembling, "Mom was wrong. Mom will be good to you from now on. Don't leave." She wasn't reluctant to let me go. She was reluctant to let go of me. The money tree who could crush fire extinguishers with her bare hands and could generate electricity. She even wanted me to continue treating her precious son. Julian is beyond saving. I coldly shattered her illusions. His genetic defect is congenital. Even if he receives a bone marrow transplant, he won't live for more than 3 years. Moreover, I'm not a compatible bone marrow donor. I'm just a pile of metal. Having said that, I ignored their cries. I raised my head and looked at the night sky. In the distant depths of that starry sky, I could always receive a faint signal. That was my home. My creator was waiting for me there. Goodbye, Morgan family. Goodbye, humans. Thinking about how to overcome gravity, I activated the thrusters on the soles of my feet. This was a new function I had just unlocked with the overloaded energy. 2 streams of blue flame shot out from beneath my feet. Under the astonished gazes of everyone, I slowly ascended, hovering in midair. Caleb slumped to the ground, looking at me high above, his eyes filled with despair and jealousy. He knew that from this day forward, I would be an existence he could never reach. And his family, having lost all their savings, would also bear the notoriety of abusing their adopted daughter. I had already uploaded all the evidence to the cloud and sent it to the police and the media on a scheduled basis. I transformed into a blue meteor, streaking across the night sky, flying towards freedom. The wind whistled in my ears. I looked down at the brightly lit city below. Those myriad lights that I once envied were now, in my eyes, nothing more than a collection of inefficient energy aggregates. IMX 799. I am Ilara. I am free. Omnipotent nanny robot, IQ 280. Worship, remember to worship.